Okay, so picture this. You're sipping a perfectly crafted vermouth, right? And you're getting these like complex flavors, hints of maybe exotic botanicals. It's obvious there's some serious craftsmanship in every drop. Well, today we get to dive into the world of the people who actually create that experience. Vermouth Manufacturers. And we're using some really cool info from RoleCatcher to guide our deep dive.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's such a niche career path, but also it's becoming so relevant now with craft beverages becoming more and more popular. And whether someone's already a vermouth enthusiast or just, discovering vermouth for the first time, Rollcatcher really breaks down what it means to be a vermouth manufacturer. And essentially, it's about mastering that entire production process.
Mastering the production process. Okay, so for someone who's completely new to this, what does that actually involve? Like, walk us through it.
It's a really cool blend of, honestly, science and art. So you're combining different wines, spirits, and botanicals. And these need to be in very precise measurements. Then you're overseeing this process called maceration, which is basically steeping those botanicals in the alcohol to get all those unique flavors out. And then, of course, there's the sensory evaluation.
Ah, so you're not just like mixing things up. You really have to use your senses to get that perfect final product. Sounds like a pretty refined palate is essential here.
Exactly. Even just a small difference, I mean, a tiny variation in, say, the ingredients or how long that maceration process goes for, it could totally change how the vermouth tastes in the end.
Sure.
So a vermouth manufacturer has to, they really need a deep understanding of how those little nuances affect everything to make sure that the taste is balanced and enjoyable every time.
And speaking of taste, I did notice in what you shared that there's a real emphasis on the demand for craft and artisanal vermouth these days. It's like people are moving away from those mass-produced brands and wanting something more natural, more like handcrafted.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that reflects a much larger trend in the beverage industry in general. There's a real desire for authenticity, for quality ingredients, and craft vermouth just fits perfectly within that. Consumers are becoming more discerning about their choices, looking for those unique flavor profiles and that kind of handcrafted quality that a skilled vermouth manufacturer can provide.
So we've talked about the like artistic side of making vermouth, but what about the day-to-day? What's it actually like to be a vermouth manufacturer?
Well, imagine walking into this, you know, pretty intense production facility, right? And the air is just filled with these amazing aromas, herbs, spices, citrus peels, all those botanicals mingling with the smell of the wine, the spirits.
It really is like a sensory experience, huh? But there's going to be a lot of hard work involved too. I mean, Rollcatcher did mention those long
Oh,
hours.
for sure.
Hmm.
Passion for vermouth definitely helps when you're up against deadlines. But it's more than just the time commitment. It's physical, too. You're on
Yeah.
your feet. You're monitoring these huge vats where the ingredients are macerating, making sure the temperature's right, the blend is balanced, and you're constantly tasting, smelling, adjusting things.
Definitely hands-on. And it sounds like the skill set is, well, pretty unique. You need more than just a good sense of taste, I'd imagine.
You got it. Remember all those precise measurements we talked about before? That's where the science comes in. You got to be good with calculations, making sure every single batch is consistent. And then there's the whole troubleshooting aspect. What happens if a batch isn't quite right?
Yeah.
You need to figure out what went wrong and then how to fix it.
Like a vermouth detective.
Exact.
That's gotta be where the real passion comes in. Because you're not just following some recipe, you're like constantly experimenting and refining, trying to make sure each bottle that makes it out there is like the absolute best it can be.
That's it. That's what it's all about. And honestly, that's what makes this whole career path so rewarding. You're creating something totally unique, something that comes from your own skills and your passion.
Okay, so someone's listening to us, they're intrigued by all this talk of vermouth, and they're thinking, hey, maybe I want to be a vermouth maestro. What's the path look like? Do you just like jump right in, or are there steps along the way?
Well, actually, Rollcatcher lays out pretty clear career ladder, which is cool. You might start as a junior vermouth manufacturer, so you're assisting with the production, getting a feel for everything, and then you could move up to being an assistant vermouth manufacturer, taking on more responsibility, maybe even starting to play around with your own recipes a little.
Ah, so there's room to grow, to get creative as you gain more experience.
Exactly. And eventually you could become, a full-on vermouth manufacturer where you're running the whole production process for certain vermouths. And then the top rum, senior vermouth manufacturer, that's where you're leading a team, developing new products, really leaving your mark on the industry.
That's awesome. They've really got it all mapped out. But what about, say, someone who's really drawn to this world, but not sure about, like, making vermouth their whole career. Are these skills useful in other parts of the beverage industry? Could you make a move?
Definitely. In fact, the source material highlights a few related career paths.
Hmm.
So, for example, you could be a distillery worker or a brewhouse operator. Those jobs need people who are comfortable with the hands-on production side of things, the attention to detail, and obviously a good palate is always a plus.
Good to know you've got options. Now let's get down to brass tacks here. What about the earning potential? If you go down this road, what can you expect to make as a vermouth manufacturer?
RoleCatcher gives a range of like $35,000 to $60,000 per year. But, keep in mind, that can change depending on how much experience you have, where you're located, what kind of facility you're working in. All that plays a role. But, and this is important, with the craft vermouth market growing so fast, there's a lot of potential for growth in this field. As more and more people are looking for these unique, high-quality vermouths, the demand for skilled vermouth manufacturers, it's only going to increase.
Like you said earlier, this industry is on fire.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to ask about RoleCatcher's resources for people who are ready to go after these jobs. Their AI-powered interview practice tools, those are really cool. What do you think about those?
Honestly, it's such a good resource for anyone serious about this. Think about it. You get to practice answering those typical interview questions, but they're specifically for vermouth manufacturer roles. And then you get instant feedback on your answers. It's like having your own interview coach right there on your phone.
Yeah, and they even have sample interview questions. I saw one that was like, can you describe a time you had to troubleshoot a problem during the vermouth production process? What a perfect way to show off those problem-solving skills we were talking about.
Exactly. It all comes down to, being prepared, showing your passion.
Right.
What better way to do that than by, talking about how you've handled real challenges in the vermouth making process?
Totally. It's clear that this career path needs a pretty special mix of things, right? You need those technical skills for sure, but also creativity and just a genuine love for the craft. So here's something I want everyone listening to think about as they're, going on their own vermouth journey. If you were a vermouth manufacturer, what would be your signature? What amazing botanical combination, what unexpected flavor profile would you share with the world